everyone. This is Ryan Fowler, with my good friends Tim Costello and Jordan Kurtz. Oh, where's Tim? There he is.
I got you.
Inner Game Group Live. Hope everyone's doing well. We have a good one today. We are going to go into spirituality, belief in God, self-love, how that helps with healing. Of course, we're going to hit up on some stuff we've hit up a couple times before, which is inner child work, codependency. We're going to hit on some of those issues. Jerry Wise is Parth. Welcome to the show, my man. Jerry Wise is interviewing this lady doctor. She's talking about something called inner bonding, which we'll get into that. It resembles some other therapies, but we chose this. Shout out to Jordan for picking this, but I decided to go with this once he picked it because it does cover another dimension of, the spiritual side of healing, which I think is very important. But it's a variety of topics covered today. We'll definitely get into the spiritual aspects of healing. It's going to be a good one. Before we do that, Jordan and then Tim, introduce yourselves. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm not sick like I was last time, or
literally
as sick. Finally, it only took 2.5 months, so yay, and a bunch of drugs, so that helps too.
Yay, drugs.
Yeah, my suit is a little stinky at the moment, so I'm just doing a t-shirt because I was at a wedding. But yeah, it's been going good. We didn't stream last week.
We didn't stream last week. You guys were out, and I was like, yeah. It's just not the same without you.
So the video is with Dr. Margaret Paul, and she speaks. I think last time we did a show, we also had another interview between Jerry Wise and I think it was Anna Runkle. And I really like seeing these therapist type people. I don't think he's not technically a doctor, but he's a family.
He has a master's.
Guy.
He's licensed.
Yeah. And I like seeing these people play off each other. I think they know to ask really good questions. And it's just, I find it entertaining. Maybe it's because I'm sort of in the same field, but I find it entertaining watching these people sort of play off each other and ask good questions and give good feedback and commentary to each other. So that's one of the things I liked about it. And in addition, I think it's really good information too.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of like these guys are interesting because it is kind of like second wave therapy or maybe third wave. First wave psychoanalysis hardly worked at all. Second wave CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, normal talk therapy, which universities still teach, even though it came out in the 60s, 1960s, 1970s. These guys are kind of third wave. The fourth wave is out, but they kind of understand everything we do. They just don't know how to rewire the brain like that. But all their information is really, really good information. Mm-hmm. So it'll be good today. And they do cover a lot of really good topics. And I love how the good doctor goes into spirituality today because it is an essential component, I think. It's not religion, spirituality. That's a different thing. So it'll be good. And Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim with Tim Costello Hypnosis.com. You can find me there and any other place you can find me. Just ask ChatGPT about Tim Costello in Oklahoma City and it'll give you a big rundown. But let's get to the topic to today. What we have learned over a bunch of years, and we'll call it 40 or 50 at this point, that everybody is trying to figure out how to fix or heal people who seem to be somewhat dysfunctional. The reason they're dysfunctional is because there's some miswiring in their brain. They're not born that way. Now, when we get to the real personality, which is what Ryan and Jordan are talking about, that becomes your spirituality. When you get all of the things out of the way that are holding you back, you now know exactly who you are. And you can now act like your true, authentic person, which is deep inside every one of us. We just have to unbury it.
Yeah.
And we do that. And now what I like in the recent therapies, such as Jerry and who's the Schwartz guy who Jerry plays in the IFS, but
internal family systems. Yeah.
But it was developed by Richard Schwartz, and this lady Ann Runkle last time we talked about, and then this lady coming on here, Margaret. They're all getting closer to where this thing is, and that is the trauma that we develop because of toxic shame or neglect in our childhood. Somebody could actually not shame you at all, but with tremendous neglect, you have a hard time figuring out who you are as you're beginning your human journey. So what we do is a lot quicker than they do. And we're going to speak about some very common terms with a bunch of different names, right? So be prepared to hear throughout this that we're going to say this means this, and this is how we do it. They're not to our level of immediacy, but they are definitely to our level of effectiveness. Theirs just takes a lot longer.
It takes longer, but they're working on the right stuff in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, always through repetition and emotional response and awareness, you will eventually fix yourself, but it takes years, where what we do literally happens in hours. And every one of us have had the experience of people coming aware out of hypnosis and completely feeling differently. They feel lighter. They feel freer. They can't even put it into words sometimes. But in a few weeks with a follow-up, we find out that they're definitely on the right path. And that's what I got. Let's get on with this topic.
Yeah, lots of engagement today. Parth, welcome to the show. Zoramina, welcome to the show. And P-Dubs, Duarte, and then Carrie's here as well. So welcome, everyone. All the concepts they talk about are just spot on.
Yep.
The only difference we have is we're able to turn these this subconscious trauma, which is like solid clay, like a clay plate or pot. It's rigid, it's hard in your brain, and we're just able to make it soft clay and then just reshape it much more rapidly. If they just learn this, because they know everything else, you know. It is what it is. And you mentioned Anna Runkle. I was just watching one of her videos, and she talks about how even now she'll read her YouTube comments, and she gets all these great comments, and then one person in her comments is rude to her, and it'll throw her off. And then she has to do her exercises and get grounded again because it messed with her. And she said, my husband's just like, why can't you just say, you know, doesn't matter, screw them, bye, they're dumb. And just move on. And she can't because of her trauma. Anna Runko is Crappy Childhood Fairy. That's her YouTube channel. And she has a great way for managing trauma, but she doesn't know how to fix it. It's like, man, if you could just fix it, Anna, you wouldn't keep getting dysregulated when people criticize you, you know? And that's the thing is I used to be like her. Like I used to, someone would say something unkind to me and it could mess me up all day or for multiple days. And Tim, you knew me when that could happen to me, you know, when I was much more emotionally fragile, but I know what it's like to be on the other side. So these people, Jerry Wise, and I keep forgetting the lady doctor's name.
Margaret Paul.
Yeah, I didn't see her. Margaret, what's up?
Margaret Paul.
Yeah, Margaret Paul. They do know how to heal trauma. I just wish they knew how to use neuroplasticity. You ask a psychologist, hey, what's neuroplasticity? And they're like, oh yeah, we used to think the brain couldn't change after childhood, but now we know it can. But then if you ask them, okay, how do you use neuroplasticity? Most of them are just like, I'm like, how do you make the brain neuroplastic? And they say, it's like, guys, just add this one thing, could you? You know, but that's our job. That's why we got a show. So let's go ahead and dive in. And I think start at 145. Go ahead, pull that up, Jordan, and we'll get started on that.
All righty.
So I'm going to take it. And well, when I began doing my own therapy decades ago, which I've probably been doing therapy ever since, I wasn't really happy with the results, and I then stumbled onto Bowen family systems theory, and I stumbled onto inner child work, and those seem to help me the most and make the biggest changes in my life. And so, having had that strong interest in that, I found that it was personally helpful for me. That's what I bring to my practice when I work with other people. How and when did you begin to see inner bonding and inner child work was so important for recovery and healing?
Well, I was working as a traditional psychotherapist for 17 years. And like you, I had had a ton of my own therapy. And I wasn't happy with my own results or the results of traditional psychotherapy. And that's when I started to actually pray for a process, a teacher, something that would come in and offer a process that would really work so much better, work faster, work deeper, that people could actually do on their own instead of always having to be dependent on going to somebody. That's when I met the co-creator, Dr. Erica Chopich, and she had half of inner bonding. I had half of inner bonding. So of course we had to meet, and we put this together with the help of our higher guidance. And that was 36 years ago. It's been evolving for the past 36 years into an extremely powerful self-healing mind, body, spirit process that's very different than traditional psychotherapy. And it's what's worked for me. It's what's worked for, I think, millions of people around the world at this point. And so I'm looking forward to sharing it with you.
Wonderful. And I think we have a similar background that way. And I worked as a traditional psychotherapist, a marriage and family therapist, and social worker, and all those trainings for doing that. And then I had to find out what really worked.
Right.
And
I love that.
And I know, like you, I was looking for something that I could do for myself.
Right.
Not that I don't need help or don't need outside observations, or, it's not that I don't need to talk to someone, but it was something, how can I continue on that process? And self-supervision, we might say, in the therapy world, or self-healing.
Right.
And I found Bowen Family Systems was a help to me to get that I could begin to coach myself in differentiation, and in the inner child work, I could begin to do the healing and coaching for myself to be more of an adult and more of a connected adult, right. Connecting my feelings, inner child, and my inner adult. And that I could carry that on whether I was seeing someone or not.
Right.
And
exactly.
that I wasn't dependent on therapy. Why is bonding with ourselves and loving ourselves so critical for healing?
Let's go ahead and pause just real quick.
The problem is that
I just want our audience to understand what inner child work is before we go on, so you don't get lost in the mix. Normal therapy, and again, we say normal therapy is helpful, but kind of sucks. They're acknowledging that, which I think is great. And I think the systems they use now are far more effective. Power to them. Normal therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy says, okay, let's look at these behaviors that aren't good. People are procrastinating, or they're acting out with addictions, or just, whatever they're doing that's behaviorally not good. And then they look at the cognitive thought processes tied to that, and they work with that. And that's all surface level. Mm-hmm. And without addressing the deeper trauma. Although the original creator of cognitive therapy also created the concept of our core identity. And let's see, what's this you brought up here?
I was just talking about Bowen Family Systems.
Okay. Is that internal family systems? It's a little
very
different.
Similar.
Very similar. Okay. So, and Bowen family, internal family systems are really like, and again, you'll have to forgive me. There's just so many therapies out there. And the thing is there's a massive amount of overlap because they're all talking about the same thing. Cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't cover this inner world stuff, although they understand core identity. Core identity is your deep subconscious beliefs learned in childhood about who you are. And then there's core schema. That's your learned beliefs about the world around you. All very important stuff. But then they stay surface level with traditional therapy. They just look at your thought processes. They may go a little bit into childhood and trauma and stuff, but just not nearly as deep. And that's why it's kind of a trauma management tool, not a trauma fixing tool. So these guys, they said, okay, we're not satisfied with that. It's not fixing anything, at least not that much. It's managing, and you feel better because you manage it, not fixing the trauma. Now they're fixing the trauma. Inner child work is about fixing trauma. It's about when I was, for example, I was 3 years old and this thing happened. My dad yelled at me when I was 3. And based on that, I developed a feeling that I'm unsafe and that, when I fail, it means I'm a failure because I failed at something. My dad yelled at me. So when these subconscious beliefs are learned, they're learned when you're 3. They're formed when you're 6, when you're 8, when you're 12. All the, I'm not good enough. That core identity belief is formed with you 2, 6, 8. And so the beliefs are formed from the standpoint of that 2-year-old or 8-year-old. And then they're down in our subconscious, just static. So we literally have these belief systems tied to different points in our childhood. That is our inner child. And so just to set the stage and about family systems here too, so our audience understands, you have a 2-year-old's belief systems. You have an 8-year-old's belief systems in you because they form as a child and then they become static and they're locked there more or less at that age. Go back to these different ages of you that form these different subconscious beliefs and address that and heal that. And a lot of it is just feeling unsupported, unloved. So you got to give your inner child love. When they talk, so that's inner child work, going back and addressing and healing these subconscious traumas that developed at different stages of childhood. And you literally have this subpersonality in you that is like a child that's still there. And that kind of opens up the door to family systems because family systems is all about, we have subpersonalities in our brain or in our psyche that play different roles, like different members of a family will play a role. The oldest child plays a different role than the youngest child in the family. The father plays one role. The mother plays a role. These roles can sometimes be, in a healthy family, they'll be flexible and they'll shift. If mom's sick, then dad will take over mom's roles, as needed. Sometimes the different children will step in and one child will be a peacemaker one time. And then another situation, the peacemaker isn't there. So another child plays peacemaker when there's, conflict. So, but we have that within ourselves. We have these different subpersonalities that play these roles. So when they talk like a family, but it's all within us. So when they talk about internal family systems, that's what they're talking about. And each subpersonality serves a different need to help us function, to help us avoid internal pain or manage internal pain tied to trauma. And then inner child work is just healing these subconscious beliefs that formed in our childhood that are still there from the point of view of that child. And so I want our audience to understand what all of this is. That's what it is. Now we can move forward. Do you guys have anything to add?
I was just talking about the primary goal of the therapy is to foster the differentiation of self, which refers to the ability to maintain one's individual identity while remaining emotionally connected to others. And so really what they're referring to there is this enmeshment in toxic family systems.
Okay.
People feel like they are tied. They feel like they are emotionally responsible for each other's feelings. They feel like there's a lot of this interconnectedness. And so that's why I like that.
Different than internal family systems, actually.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all
So-
talking about the same thing, just using different language and structures.
Yeah. So for our audience, I was talking about internal family systems. When I say we have these different subpersonalities within us, each playing a role to keep us overall, functioning. This is a little different than that, but go ahead.
Well, I think it's still related. I mean, in
Absolutely.
order to differentiate yourself, you still have to be connected to yourself, to these internal, I guess, your inner child or whatever else you want to call it.
Yeah, and I want to riff off what you said, Tim, is what happens is when we get subconscious trauma, we get these subpersonalities performed that have different roles to kind of protect us from the trauma or to protect us from feeling the pain.
So let me comment on that. That's a really good spot. The brain is a predictive analysis machine.
Yeah.
It will constantly work with your subconscious to analyze your environment and try to predict what may happen to you. And I'm going to use that, what happens to you emotionally. So Ryan mentioned the inner child work that we do. And there are different parts of our childhood that become stuck. And we often refer to that the things we do is like peeling an onion because, through that, let's call it 0 to 12, because you're probably 85% done then. But 0 to 8 is pretty phenomenal. That's
like 75%.
Of your subconscious structure.
Yeah.
Things happen to you at different times. And just to make a point, and I'm going to extrapolate what Ryan said. Let's say your dad yells at you and says, "You're dumb. Why did you do that?" The very first time your dad does that, it probably has zero effect on your subconscious because that may be the first time it heard that. But it's going to note it. It's going to record it and say, here's how I felt a little bit about that particular comment. The next week, your dad says, "How stupid are you?" That's a very similar comment. Your brain is now going to go, wow, when you act a certain way, you get this response, and this response doesn't feel good. A couple more times like that, you're going to go back to that root cause, and you're going to say, wow, I must not be good enough because he's my dad and he knows everything. So I must be the stupid one. So you develop that program inside your brain that says you are the stupid one and you must be defective. So then you have this subconscious routine rolling in your head that you aren't good enough, you're dumb, you're defective, whatever the case may be. And it's extremely variable because everybody has a very different upbringing and situations. Now,
I think you got to plug in the subpersonality, which is then you have the subpersonality form saying, okay, anytime I'm in this situation, I'm at risk of him calling me dumb or someone else calling me dumb, which feels really bad. So I'm going to now, because my brain is predicting anytime I'm in a certain situation, this will happen again, and then I'll feel dumb and horrible. Now there's a subpersonality making you act a certain way to avoid that from happening.
That's exactly where I was going to go.
Good.
And when we get to a 33-year-old person and we're talking about the things that trigger them, the things that come to the forefront are the things that are making them act in a toxic way now. They are the most painful. They're the most visible to them that they need fixed. So we do that. And then we will go back in inner child work to the very first time they felt that way, because that's where the program originated. And then we will clear that particular trauma out and then reprogram that particular routine that's running, like they're not good enough or something like that. And we'll feed them a bunch of good programming. Now, 12 weeks go by, and this happened to my wife. There are other things that will now come to the surface that weren't very on top of it because it was below the pain level of the thing they were dealing with. So now that personality comes out, and that person says, here's what's bothering me now. So we do another analysis to determine exactly what that trauma is. And it's almost the exact same process. We're going to go back into hypnosis so that we can get all the things lined up that help the brain be neuroplastic so it can change. And we will go back to that age again that person first felt that way, and strip that trauma out and re-clear it. So when Ryan's talking about those personalities, they really are methods of acting in the current world that keep you from being hurt or injured emotionally, physically, whatever the case may be. And by the way,
as much as possible.
As much as possible.
People still get triggered and hurt all the time.
Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong with a tiny bit of anxiety and a tiny bit of procrastination while you're thinking of things. That's probably sort of normal and functional.
Yeah.
What isn't normal and functional is I can't do anything for months because I might get hurt.
Yeah. Or someone makes a comment and you're emotionally wrecked for 3 days.
Oh, absolutely. And
that used to happen. I'd go on a date. I'd get rejected on a date and I'd just be down for 3 days.
Carrie, Ryan did a session for Carrie almost 3 years ago, I think it was. And it cured a lot. She got rolling, started a business, kept me working on the weekends and the evenings, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. You've been working like a dog, man.
I did a session with her a few months ago because more trauma came to the surface. She's freer now than in any time in her whole life. Her eyes are different. Her eyes are brighter. Her smile is bigger. And generally, she just sits on the couch, looks over me and says,
like, I'm happy.
I'm just so happy. I feel so good. And I said, welcome to the human race, the functional human race. Yeah. And she may have one or two more little traumas in there that we'll clear out in the future. But right now, she's cooking on gasoline like it's lit up behind her with a bomb. I mean, it's amazing what it is when you get rid of that personality that makes you act a certain way.
Yeah.
Take it away, Ryan, Jordan.
So, yeah, just real quick, and then I know, Jordan, you probably want to chime in. So what happens is we have all these sub-personalities develop that make us behave in certain ways at certain times to avoid triggering trauma in us because it hurts and our brain wants us to avoid that pain and defend ourselves from getting rejected, defend ourselves from failing, and then feeling bad if failure makes us feel bad. And when you get rid of all the trauma, you're basically, it's kind of like there is just this amazing core diamond that's covered in all this crap. And the crap is trauma. You dig it all away, you uncover it all, and what's underneath it all is just this jewel, this priceless jewel, the real you, which inner child is a part of that. If that inner child gets love and then just can be its true self. And then you're just the authentic, real, confident you. Once you uncover all this trauma, once you dig through all the layers, you're going to see who you really are. It's there. It's precious. It's valuable. It's underneath all that crap that we just clear away.
Yep.
Yeah. And go ahead, Jordan, if you have anything, and then we'll get back to the.
Just real simply that oftentimes, because we were talking about the family systems here, oftentimes that stuff you have to clear away is that toxicity. And he's actually going to he'll reference that eventually in this interview too, but how that enmeshment is, for a lot of people, is the cause of a lot of that dirt and grime you have to clear away from that jewel in order to actually be your authentic self. And that can, unfortunately, that can reveal some uncomfortable truths about people you thought cared about you.
About your dysfunctional family. Yeah.
Right.
And explain what enmeshment is too.
Enmeshment is just this feeling like I don't own myself, that I'm part of the system of group. I have to become less so others can become more. Is like you're emotionally tied together. Nobody takes responsibility for their own emotions and feelings in this. I mean, I guess you could be enmeshed in a friend group or potentially even a workplace, but it happens seemingly more often in a family system where you feel like you have to be this way.
You have to sacrifice the real you for the good of the family.
Right.
So you have to suppress who you really are change who you really are, fit a role that's not the real you for the good of the family.
Yes. And oftentimes in order to even discover who you really are, you have to step out of that family system, because you have almost no reference for who you really are. You have
no
to sometimes
contact
figure that
who
out.
you are. Yeah. Apart from the
Yeah.
family. Yeah.
Right.
And enmeshment really causes toxic. I'm not good enough. The real me doesn't have value. I have to be something I'm not in order to be good enough for my family.
Yeah.
And so everyone's in this family system trying to hold the family together, but suppressing who they really are. And that leads to, oh, I'm not good enough. The real me isn't acceptable to the family. I have to play a role now. Yeah. So as we go through this, now you know what all these terms are, guys.
So Jerry is going to use the term differentiation, and we lightly went over it a little bit, but differentiation in his term, which is the Bowen's family systems, and Jordan had it up there a second ago. It's the ability, all right? So it's the ability. You have some ability to do something to maintain your sense of self.
Yeah.
Right. So the only way you can maintain your sense of self while staying emotionally connected to others is to know your true, authentic self.
And have boundaries too.
Right. And the only way to know your true, authentic self is to do what Jordan was saying and gave a great analogy, is you are a diamond, a wonderful gem with immense value and worth, but you're covered up with a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
And when you get that junk removed, you now can understand who you are, how you want to function. And like Ryan said, you automatically set up borders, because you now no longer put up with things that you would have put up before.
Yeah.
So you just say, nope, ain't doing that. You know, Carrie, like Ryan said, things would set her off. She'd be twisted all day long. Ryan fixed her. Some things rose over.
And then you did too.
Right. But then she would still be fixed on other things, although she was good at letting some things go by. And then after I did another session for her, she's like, almost nothing bothers her but me. So we're pretty good now.
but she's had a massive change. In how many sessions did it take for just complete 180? 2 sessions. 2 sessions. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, these enmeshed families where people have to sacrifice who they are to play a role for the good of the family, suppress their desires, play these rigid roles, it breeds a lot of depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, and resentment, because they can't be their true selves. The real me isn't good enough. That will lead to depression for sure. It's not the only reason for depression, but it's a big one. Anxiety, because you're walking on eggshells and you have this rigid system, and if you accidentally step outside of your role, you get yelled at, or abused. And then you have resentment, because you're not allowed to be the real you, and that is just like incredibly unfair that you have to sacrifice the very core of who you are for this system. There's a deep, I'm telling you from experience in the family I grew up in, there's a deep sense of resentment, and ultimately I had rage over it, that I didn't matter, that the system mattered and I did not. That sucks.
And deep down,
you
want to matter.
Yeah. We want to be accepted and loved for who we really are.
Yeah, that's the painful part that Ryan's describing. You get
very
mad
painful
because you're left out in left field.
The real me is worthless unless I am the good Pinocchio, not a real boy, but a puppet.
Yeah.
So I only matter when I'm a puppet, align myself to be manipulated, and fit into this system. And the real me is baddie, and there's a deep sense of injustice and anger, and if it's suppressed long enough, ultimately manifests as rage in these enmeshed systems. And there can be a lot of over the years, eventually bitterness and fighting coming out, and and Jordan, I don't know, can I even mention that, Jordan, like your experiences?
Oh yeah.
Like you're differentiating yourself. That's okay?
Yeah.
You're differentiating yourself, saying, I'm going to be the real me. I'm not just going to fit into my family. And how's different family members reacting to that?
Well, I think it's, I don't know if it's, how would I describe it if it's exactly that? Well, what I highlighted here was this family projection process, which describes how parents may project their own anxieties onto their children.
Yeah.
And I think that phrase resonated with me because I think that's what was happening to me ultimately. Was I felt just every time I would be around certain individuals, just this constant, almost like this black hole of negativity. It was like, something's always going wrong in this individual's lives. It's like somebody's not getting along with somebody else, or somebody else died, or somebody else, this happened, or something. Just constant negativity. And when you're around that for so long, you kind of it becomes normalized. And so what I've had to end up doing recently is I step away from that. I'm like, I can't be around this anymore. I can't have the relationships with these people that I originally wanted, because they have their own mental health issues that they're dealing with, that they've struggled with all their lives. And so, but when you realize that and point those things out, unfortunately, like all enmeshed family systems react this way, there's pushback. There's, well, how could you do this to somebody else, versus
how could you? That's shame,
right?
Guilty.
How could you do that? And of course, and they never point. It's always my fault for pushing back, rather than the original perpetrators of the issues' fault. It's this victim blaming mentality that causes this enmeshment, and it's predictable. It's so predictable they can measure it. This is not a new thing. This is very well documented and understood now. Fortunately, now
very, very similar to what happened with my enmeshed family, dysfunctional family. I start to get better. I start to realize, when I first went to a therapist, my very first therapy session, at the end of the session, or near the end, the therapist said, over the next week, I want you to think about what you want. And my response to him was, isn't that selfish? to want anything at all? Isn't that selfish? Aren't I just supposed to give up all my desires and sacrifice myself for the greater good? Isn't that what a good Christian does? Give up their will for the will of God, for the will of Jesus. Because that's what my family taught me. And as I started to, and I had very severe manic depression, much more depression I would swing to manias, kind of slow swings. I'd be manic for a month and then depressed for 10. But the more I started embracing this concept of, I'm allowed to have an opinion. I'm not bad for having an opinion that's different from my parents, because, they set themselves up as you have to do what Jesus says and what God says. But by the way, we covertly are God. Our viewpoint is God's viewpoint. It's one and the same. So they were setting themselves up as God in a kind of covert way. And if I varied from that at all, I'm bad, I'm evil, I'm sinful. And so when I did start differentiating myself, what do? I start pulling away, trying to become my own person, be authentic to myself, what I wanted, who I was, what I thought, my actual opinions that weren't just in lockstep with what I was told was right. And so starting different, what happened? They started criticizing me, guilting me, shaming me, emotionally bullying me to get back in line.
Yep.
And you very much get the feeling, and it's a true feeling, in these enmeshed family systems, you get the feeling who I am, what I feel, what I want is not important. Playing the role I'm told to play is all that matters. And if that causes me misery, they don't care. And unfortunately, I think at some very deep down level, they do care, but they have their own role to play, and their own role just supplants everything. And so you start seeing this, I trigger them for them to rage at me, and by pulling away. And so they'll these family systems, there's like this underlying like resentment and hostility and shame and guilt and criticism that keeps you into that rigid role. When you pull away, it all starts to come out, and it's like, oh, holy crap. And so, and you got to get some time out, and then you got to get some time on your own, some limited contact, no contact from that dysfunctional system. And then you got to heal, because man, I mean, if you don't, you're probably going to end up, I'm not 99.99% of people won't go this far. This is an extreme case. But if you're in a dysfunctional family, an extreme case, you end up shooting some guy who's innocent, and now he has 2 daughters who are going to grow up without their dad. And everyone knows what I'm talking about. That is the most extreme result of a very dysfunctional family, and it's so tragic. You see these, watch Rob on HBO Max. I think it's still up. Come Inside My Mind. It's the documentary about Robin Williams. Goes extensively over his childhood trauma. What ends up after years and years and years of alcoholism, and then he beats alcoholism, but struggling with depression his whole life, codependency, all this stuff. Ultimately, he self-deletes. Same thing with Marilyn Monroe, Kurt Cobain. All these. What's up?
Matthew Perry.
What was that? What was that redhead guy on SNL, the overweight guy? He was hilarious in the 90s.
Oh, Chris Farley.
Chris Farley OD'd, and in extreme cases. So, and you see all of these, woke people just be projecting all their unacknowledged shame onto others and angry at others and just lashing out, all this stuff. It's all trauma. It's all just massive amounts of trauma, and they respond to it in different ways. And it's like, man, if you want to heal the nation, it starts with healing yourself. It really does. If all of these people you see, Antifa, they're acting out violently, if they all went inward and were able to heal their trauma, they wouldn't be doing that crap. They just flat out wouldn't. They'd be happy, productive people of society. And in the woke movement, there's a seed of truth, what they're trying to do, which is they're trying to say, accept me for who I am. I'm this, transgender person. Can you please just love me for who I am? But because they have trauma, that no matter how much outward acceptance, we can have the whole nation say you're transgender and we love and we embrace you. If that transgender or other emotionally messed up person does not go in and heal themselves, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much external validation they get. Look at Marilyn Monroe, how much validation she got. She still self-deleted. So all of these people, in this time in our country where there's so much division, how do you solve it? You go in and heal yourself. And then all these people are finally going to get the peace that they think the outside world can give them. It doesn't work. It does not work. It just doesn't. So anyways.
Yep.
I was going to say the concept.
All that happened is tragedy.
Yes. I was going to say the concept of you don't own yourself. When you're in that enmeshment family, you feel like you are owned by other people. You're not allowed to make. It's basically slavery in a way when you don't own yourself. And when you take back your power and you feel like, oh, I do own myself and all my actions, that's where you'll inevitably like roll over a log of problems, but in the end, you'll find more peace with yourself, which is actually what Margaret Paul is going to talk about in this next segment.
I guarantee the shooter, I think Tyler Robinson is his name. Yeah. I absolutely guarantee you he comes from, even though it's a conservative Christian family, that was my family. Looked fantastic on the outside, upper middle class. Your dad, upper middle management at an oil company, well into the 6 figures. You know, again, no one in my family's gonna pull what Tyler Robinson did. We're not at that level, but I guarantee you his family system, I guarantee you 110% was an extremely dysfunctional, extremely shame-based family system. And all of his trauma led him to do what he did. If he was emotionally healthy, there's no way in hell he ever would have done anything like that.
100% on the money.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, ready to keep going here.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
We're already at the
We got on a huge tangent, but whatever.
It's our show.
It's our
We can
show.
do what we want.
It's our show, damn it. Yeah.
All right.
If we're not loving ourselves, if we're not taking responsibility for our own feelings and our own needs, then what we're doing is abandoning ourselves. And just like with an actual child, if you're not paying any attention, if you're not listening, if you're not taking care of their needs, they're going to feel abandoned, they're going to feel unlovable, and they're going to act out in some ways. And so what happens with us is, first of all, we end up feeling unimportant, unlovable. And then what happens in our relationships is we end up trying to have control over getting somebody else to take care of our feelings and needs. And we go into all sorts of controlling behavior. As you know, we get angry, we give ourselves up, we withdraw, all kinds of manipulations to try and get somebody else to take care of that inner child. That's our feeling self.
Right.
Yeah. And so then, of course, we come together with people at our common level of self-abandonment or our common level of self-love. So if we're abandoning ourselves, we're going to meet somebody who's abandoning themselves. They're going to expect us to take care of them. We're going to expect them to take care of us. We create a codependent relationship that doesn't work.
And then you make money for the marriage and family therapist.
That's right. And so when people learn to take care of themselves, take care of their feelings, learn to listen inside is what we teach in inner bonding, to listen, to understand the false beliefs that we're coming from, to develop that loving adult. It's also a spiritual process, learning to access a higher source of love and truth and wisdom. As people practice this, they develop new neural pathways in their brain for the loving adult, like you were talking about. And we get better and better at taking care of ourselves and actually filling ourselves with love. And when we learn to do that, we get sort of overflowing with love to share with others. And when two people are loving themselves, bonding with themselves, and getting filled up with love, then they have love to share with each other. And that's what a great relationship is. That's where it's fun, where it's intimate, where it's learning, where it's growing. When we have love to share, rather than always trying to get love. When we're abandoning ourselves, we're always trying to get love. That is what doesn't work.
And then we get addicted to love.
Well, we get addicted
I
to
mean,
trying to get it.
trying to get to love, right?
Yeah,
we get addicted to trying to seek it.
That's right. And we think that that's the best feeling, because if somebody gives us a little bit of love, like a little bit of sugar, oh boy, it feels great for the moment.
This tastes so good.
Right. But then we have to.
Until I need some more.
That's why I need more.
Let's hang on there for a second.
It never.
Okay.
Sure.
So what they're talking about in a very lovely sing-songy way with a bunch of nice words and stuff is validation. You are either going to validate internally and need nothing external from you, generally speaking. And by the way, even if you're fully solid, everybody loves a pat on the head for doing a good job. Don't get me wrong. But if you can generate the validation internally, it never stops because it's infinite and it keeps on giving and you don't need it externally. If you don't have that internal validation, because like Jordan says, your diamond is covered up with a bunch of junk, then you're going to look outside yourself for validation. And anytime somebody sends a nice little word your way, it feels good for a second, but it's done. And you're on for the next piece of validation. So you'll be a people pleaser. You'll be a who knows what.
You'll play the victim to get others to feel sorry for you.
There you go.
That's a form of validation.
Absolutely. Even
Look at this poor person, we need to help them. And they're like, oh, someone's helping me now. Oh, yay.
So but
you have to stay a victim to keep getting that.
The difference is you're either going to need, well, you need validation no matter where you get it from, but you can get an infinite supply of validation internally, and we help you do that. Or you can seek external validation, of which there is not a bucket big enough to hold all that isn't available.
Yeah.
And that's key. You can't get enough external validation. So internal validation is what it's all about. And that's how we get, like Jordan says, you get that diamond uncovered. Once that diamond's uncovered, it's a nuclear power generator of validation. And you don't need it from anywhere else. Now, I still like doing a good job for the person who's paying me. And I love a little pat on the head now and again, but I'm not seeking it. It's just nice to have it.
Yeah. So this one thing you mentioned, Tim, that they're talking about as well, if everyone in our nation knew and then were willing to go inward to give themselves the love they need, they knew how to do it and they were willing to do it and they cleared their trauma, there would be no division in our country.
Right.
You wouldn't have people at war with each other. So again, with the with the woke liberal movement that has led up to this horrendous assassination of Charlie Kirk and all the fallout from that, let's say you're a person who's like, and I'm not even going to go into like, if there's something wrong, transgenderism, it's actually a diagnosed mental illness. It's in the DSM-5. I'm not even going to go into that, but let's say someone is transgender or they have something else about them that really makes them in many ways stand out as very different from from the norm, whatever that might be. They're a dwarf. Sean Stevenson, 2 feet 8 inches tall in a wheelchair. So let's say there's someone who has some sort of feature about them that really makes them stand out as completely different from the mainstream. And what you see a lot of these people then do is, well, the mainstream must accept me. That, you gotta, hey, mainstream, you gotta stop being racist. You gotta stop being sexist. You gotta stop being bigoted and love and accept me. And no matter how much the mainstream gives to them, other people, and of course the mainstream's very imperfect, so there's a lot of judgment. Hey, you are different than us. You're a freak, whatever. If these people, instead of looking to something they cannot control, you cannot control whether people outside of you validate you. You can't control it. You can get some of it some of the time. You can do certain things to get validation some of the time. It doesn't work all of the time. And no matter how much external validation, again, Marilyn Monroe had all the external validation anyone could ever hopefully want, wasn't enough. If you don't know how to love and validate yourself, it's like a black hole. It's a bottomless pit. All the external validation flows in and goes down that bottomless pit and disappears, and you still have that hole in you. So if you were a person who you're 2 feet 8 inches tall, you're distorted, or you're transgender or gay or whatever, and society doesn't accept you, but you know how to go in and love and accept yourself, that's where it's like, I'm good. And you know what? I got my 3 other friends who accept me, and I accept myself, and that's all I need. And yeah, it's kind of annoying when people judge and criticize me, and it sucks. But really, it's not that bad. Whatever. Now let's just go be happy and be us. If they knew how to love and validate themselves, that's what would happen. And all this division and hate and strife and, oh, you need a, there's this Rob Schneider clip saying, California did reparations for, I guess, the black slaves. And it's like, well, he said a state that never had slaves is giving money to people who never were slaves for reparations. And it's like, it's like, no. When you love yourself, you don't need to control the outside world. You just live your life and be happy. Yeah, you'll still have challenges and ups and downs and things like that, but that is your baseline now, instead of a baseline of you guys are all horrible because you're not validating me. And all you're doing is projecting your shame onto the outside world that you don't want to acknowledge. You're externalizing it. You're saying everyone else needs to change, not me. And it's the exact opposite of what you need to do to heal. And it doesn't work. It never, ever will work. Once you go in and heal yourself, all this need to blame and shame and control the outside world, manipulate the outside world, or look to a drug or a bottle to make you whole, to get you high, and then it wears off, and then you're an addict because you need to keep using it. All that goes away, and you just feel okay. And that is the key to healing our nation right there. Going inside, learning how to love yourself. And you guys have anything to add?
I liked when Jerry said that you get addicted to trying to get that feeling versus addicted to that feeling.
Yeah.
I think that's really accurate because all the actors you just mentioned, I think that's what they were doing. I have to become more famous, more people have to like me, and so I have to constantly chase that feeling. It's never enough. But he's like, it tastes so sweet once you get a little bit of it, and you just want more and more and more. And that's, I think that most addictions kind of come out of that.
You learn how to become your own supply of sugar with self-love, and then you don't need it from outside sources.
Yeah.
And then that's the underlying root cause of addiction is or codependency or all of that. You're trying to get your love validation from outside sources. It's a temporary fix at best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think if you want to keep going here, I think she's going to talk about her own experience here soon.
Yep.
Yeah, I do want them to talk about spirituality more, and I do think we need to do a part 2 on this. Sure.
All right.
It only feels good for the moment. And so when we learn to love ourselves and really take responsibility for our own feelings, we get full inside. And that's where the joy is. That's where the creativity, the aliveness, that's where it is.
And I know, as you've talked about higher power, you've talked about God. I know my beginnings in getting psychotherapy and learning, how do I become, as a Christian pastor many years ago, how do I be a self, as a Christian? Well, I didn't like myself. I didn't know myself. I didn't know my inner child. I didn't even hardly know my inner adult. They were all mixed up in a messed up or disconnected way, as you would describe. And I just thought then I end up not loving myself, loving others in the way I want to love others, or in connection with my higher power.
Right.
And so that was a goal for me. There's got to be a way to do this. What do you say to those who say, "Oh, but I have the love of God. I have the love of God. I don't need all this.
Yeah.
God loves me."
Yes, but most of the people that I work with who have said that, they don't actually have a relationship with God. They're using their higher power as what I call a spiritual bypass, where, I'll just let God take care of me, and then I don't have to take care of myself. And God is spirit. God can't come in and do it for us. God can't take action for us. So, for example, you have a baby who's crying and is hungry. Do you say, "God, come feed the baby"?
God, come feed the baby. Right.
Yeah. No.
Because he can do anything.
Right. No, but you feed the baby. And the same analogy as far as trying to get somebody else, like you have a baby. Is it easier to go around the neighborhood, knock on doors, and try and get somebody else to feed the baby? Or is it easier for you to feed the baby? And so people say, "Well, I can't do it. It's too hard. It's too much work." It's way easier than trying to get somebody else.
Trying to get God or the neighbor.
That's right.
Feed the baby.
That's right.
I love that analogy, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's internal versus external validation. You feed your own baby. Don't expect everyone else to feed it. It's your responsibility. Love yourself.
Yep.
You can do it way better than anyone else can. And you can stay full that way.
And we help you find that baby to feed.
It's what we do. And that inner child work is literally going in and feeding your baby. Yep. It's in you, your inner baby. You're feeding your core, you're giving yourself love. On our community, you see the banner at the bottom, school.com/RyanFowlerSOS -7231. Go there, community, join for free, then go to the classroom, take the self-hypnosis course. It has an audio where you meet your inner child, and it is the free program I have literally teaches you how to love yourself through inner child work. It also clears trauma. And, again, it's a basic program. A lot of people need one-on-one guidance, but a lot of people take my free stuff and get a lot of benefit and don't pay me a dime. And then they'll write me and they're like, oh, 6 months ago I did this and I've lost 50 pounds since then because I don't need food to validate me. I validate myself now. I've had people write me with that. Or, oh, I quit alcohol. I literally have had people say, well, actually, I did a session for this guy. And then I talked to him like several years later. He's like, yeah, I didn't tell you this, but after our session where we did inner child work, and then I gave him audios that he listened to, he's like, about a month and a half after the session and listened to your audios, I was drinking a fifth of Jack Daniels a day, like the 750 milliliter, one a day. Hardcore alcoholic. He's like, a month and a half after that, I just stopped. I'm like, no, I'm done with this and haven't had a drink since. I'm like, damn. It's like, yeah, because you don't need the bottle to give yourself what you just give yourself by loving yourself. Inner child. The program will do that.
I just go back to that quote in the Matthew Perry biography that he wrote about a year before he died. And he says that when he was 14, somebody gave him a bottle of alcohol. I forget which type it was, but he drank the bottle of alcohol and then he sat back or leaned back or laid back, whatever he did. And he said, wow, is this how normal people feel? And then he, at that point, became addicted to that feeling of what normalcy is and spent the rest of his life chasing it through cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, women, overworking, people pleasing, and he never, ever, ever got enough.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. Watch the latest. There's a Charlie Sheen special on Netflix right now. And something that is very interesting, one guy says in this documentary, Charlie Sheen's in the documentary being interviewed extensively, but a lot of his friends are too. And I think one of the co-stars of 2.5 Men, I think it was him. He said, anytime Charlie started to become super successful, he'd always find a way to sabotage. And he says, I think Charlie deep down believes he doesn't deserve all this success. And that's why he sabotages it. And I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Yep, that's the root cause right there. Yeah. Love yourself and then feel like you deserve it. And then you can have big success and not sabotage it.
That's right.
You want to know how to stop self-sabotaging? But you got to do it at a deep subconscious level and get that trauma out that says you're not worthy. How do you do that? Well, you can use these guys and you can get the results slowly over time. You can. They're way better than normal therapy. Or you just do the big rapid change. And, we don't fix all your trauma in one session. It might take 5. It might take 2 or 3. But it's way faster than
anything else.
Yeah. It's the fastest thing out there for sure. Sometimes psychedelics give the same effect, but there's dangers with that and legality issues.
I like that. I agree with you, Ryan. I like that analogy of going around trying to get other people to feed this baby, because I think that analogy makes it seem so self-evident.
It's a great analogy.
Like, you're the one holding it. It's like, yeah, it is
your
work
baby.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, that's my inner child that's walking around. I think so. I like that she bridges that gap from something like physical in the real world to this.
And she was also making the point that God is not going to come and feed your baby.
Right?
Yeah,
you got to do it. Whether it's a physical baby or your inner child, as we're mentioning, you got to feed your baby. Nobody can do it for you.
And
we can help you We can help you find the baby to feed and uncover the baby, but you got to feed the baby.
Yeah, and this really, I think spirituality is having a relationship with God and yourself. I don't think you can really have a relationship with God if you don't have because you got to connect to the real you, so the real you can have that relationship. Otherwise, you don't have a real relationship with God. So, to me, that's first connect to who you really are, and then the real you can have a bona fide, authentic relationship with God. That's spirituality. And I will say, this lady saying, yeah, people say, oh, I'll just let God do it. You know, praise be to God whom we love. I say, I think religion can be great. I think some people use religion as a crutch to avoid spirituality. My family certainly did. Oh, we're going to go to church every Sunday. We're going to read the scriptures. We're going to pray and do all these other things. Now I don't need to be spiritual because I just checked off these other boxes. I went through the emotions, and I don't really need to heal my core. I don't really need to have the authentic me, have true connection with a real God, with a real higher power. I can just do the things I'm told to do without any real spiritual engagement. You can do that. You can read the scriptures and not be spiritual. You can go to church and not get anything from it.
And you can gain knowledge, but no spirituality.
Yeah, you can have all this knowledge. You can pay your tithing. You can volunteer, and it could all be a completely inauthentic, fake going through the emotions, and your intent and your connection to yourself your intent is all off, and your connection to yourself isn't even there, and you can still do all those things. And so some people use religion as a crutch to really connecting with who they are and healing themselves, so that finding the real them. Jerry said he didn't know his inner child. He hardly knew his inner adult. So big aspect of spirituality is knowing who you really are, so that the real you can then actually have a bona fide, real, authentic connection with a higher power. And just going through the motions so you can say, I'm a good Christian. Look at all these things I did. You know, it's in the Bible. You know, he says, people will come to me, after they die. I think Christ said something like this. I'm sure you know better than I do, Tim. And they said, haven't we done all these great things in your name? Haven't we served people all this? And then Christ is like, I never knew you. You know what I mean? What's
Jimmy
that?
Swaggart,
But that's in the Bible. It's in the New Testament. Do you know what scripture I'm talking about?
Oh, no.
Yeah, Jesus said people will, when people are being judged, their spirits to be judged in the afterlife. And he's like, nope, you're not getting in heaven. And they're like, well, didn't we help all these people and do all this in your name? And Christ will be like, I never knew you. You went through the motions.
Oh, that's
you went to church, did all this stuff, but you never had a true connection with God, never had true person. It starts with getting to who you really are and embracing and loving that, so the real you now can connect. You can't connect to God if you can't even connect to yourself. Spirituality is connecting between the real you and God. And if you don't even know who you are, you cannot do that. It's impossible.
Matthew 7:23.
Yeah, there you go. You want to read that real quick? Did you pull it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up real quick. Got the online scriptures,
Yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Oh, my goodness. Why can't I get to the library?
Maybe our audience just looks it up.
Yeah, it's let's see. King James Version is, and then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work in iniquity.
It's the verse before that too.
Yeah, let's go see 7:21, 22, and 23. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, will enter Lord will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Or not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. So he will depart from you, and then he won't know you because you don't know him.
There's a lot of pretenders.
Yep.
They pretend to do it, but they don't have. If you don't, you can be religious and not spiritual. No, you gotta have true spirituality, which is a real Q, connects with the real God. And honestly, that's when I know Christianity's a lot about, it talks about in the New Testament, faith without works is dead. Well, it's two things. It's having that true spirituality, and then the good works naturally follow. But you can actually do a lot of good works and not have any spirituality. So you really do need both components. You get your inner world right, the good works follow. Anyways, onward and upward.
Yeah, part 2 next week, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any final thoughts, guys?
No, we said it. Let's go to number 2 next week. I love it.
All right. We'll dive more into spirituality. I do think it's an essential component of healing. But really, the first part of spirituality is connecting to who you really are and healing that, so that you can have that connection with God. So we'll go into that more next week. We're done for today. Thanks. Zoramina says thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening today. And we'll see you same time next week. You guys are both available next week, right?
Yep.
Okay. So see you guys next week. You really can develop this relationship with yourself. They're going to go in more into higher power next week. So we will dive into that more next week. But first, start with building the relationship with yourself, learning how to become your own source of love and approval. It's incredibly important. Become your own source of love and approval and validation, so you don't need it from others, so you don't need it from people you cannot control. Feed your own baby. Don't go around the neighborhood expecting others to feed that baby. Feed it yourself. And when you do, you will learn what we've learned, which is we all really do have more power than we know. That's our show. Thank you.